Hello again and welcome to another bearing removal and installation video featuring Boca bearings. Now today's engine dates back to the late 80s, about 1987, and it is a Fox 45 BBRC engine. Now this is an engine that was given to me by a friend, and I've run it one time. To me it looked like a used engine, heavily used, but now that I've disassembled it and got it ready for bearings, it might be telling a slightly different story. So let's go to the table and see what I'm talking about. Okay, so here on the table I've got the Fox 45 BBRC engine and a couple of the other parts of it to illustrate here why I was thinking that this was a used engine. But first let me just say I've got my light hammer here, tools for removing these bearings, a wood dowel that I may or may not use, and a flat nose punch, which obviously will help me get these bearings out. I've got my bench vise, my heat resistant glove, and my heat gun. So back to this engine and why. So it was a used engine given to me, and back in these days I think Fox used to run a lot of their engines at the factory, or at least definitely ones predating 1987, 1988. So they would come to you and they may not necessarily feel super smooth. They might feel kind of stiff, especially if they sat on the shelf for several years. But if you look at this engine, this is kind of how it came to me. This is a typical Fox, I don't want to show you that part yet, typical Fox case design. So they're never really a super highly polished looking case to begin with. And so between the fact that it felt a little gummy and it just didn't look super polished and clean, I was under the impression that this was a fairly heavily used engine. But when I took it apart and looked at the inside of the cover, I was like, wow, this is looking like it's telling a completely different story. So let me move those things off to the side now. We'll focus more on this engine. Now this engine is has got a really unique structure, a unique design, as you saw with the rear cover, in that the rear cover, you know, encapsulates the whole back half of the engine, which is unique to Fox. But when I looked inside here, I was like, wow, this really looks like a newer engine. So I started wondering, well, do I really want to replace the bearings? And I'm just going to consider this a hop-up or an enhancement to the current Fox engine by replacing these bearings. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to heat this crankcase up. It's already got some oil in it left over from when I ran it, and that was probably, I don't know, several months ago. So I'm going to heat this crankcase up just as I normally do, tap the crankshaft out, and we'll get these bearings out of here. Alright, because of the condition of this engine, let's see if that's enough. Oh, there is one thing I forgot. I forgot to get my piece of wood. Piece of wood to place on the crankshaft here. Okay, so as expected, that's coming out rather easily. And the bearing did not come out with it, which could be a problem because look how clean that is. Because I'm not seeing that there's a whole lot of room or a lip for me to grab onto for that. So let's get this front bearing out and then we'll address the rear bearing. So there we go. Yeah, that bearing looks brand new. So this is going to be the kicker here is, can I get an edge on this? Maybe, maybe not. Is it going to be a better option for me to just try and heat this up and do the tap thing? I think that's the option I'm going to employ right now. So I'm going to have to grab a different piece of wood and fixture it in my vise, and we will get that going. So now this is going to require me heating this up considerably. I don't know that I'm seeing that bearing move at all yet. And there's our bearing. I'm going to put that here because that's really hot. So there you go. Let me see if I can pick this bearing up like this. I'm sure it's rather warm. So here we do. We got both of these bearings out. That one's probably really warm. That one's not so warm. And that was worked out really well that I was able to get that out just by tapping it on the wood block like that once it got hot enough. So I'm going to go, and I don't know that there's going to be much to clean on this case, but I'm probably going to let it cool for a few minutes before I do the upgrade to Boca bearings and install them. Okay, so I got the crankcase all cleaned up. I did put it in the ultrasonic cleaner to clean it up some, and it came out looking fantastic. Now, I have to admit, this is probably maybe only the first or second time I've ever had the opportunity to completely disassemble a Fox engine, so I'm kind of amazed at looking inside this crankcase, and I'm just kind of in awe of some of the machining work. It's really nice. So the tools I've got here for installation of the bearings is my nice piece of wood that I forgot in the first segment, my light hammer, a really beat up short socket extension that I just use as a drive. And I always like to use Lightning Lube's Road Power as my reassembly lubricant, so I've got some of that, a little jar here to dispense them in. I might have enough left in there to get the job done. My vise, my glove, my heat gun, and of course the bearings. Now I was looking at this crankshaft, and I just want to show you this real quick, because this is just really, like I said, I haven't disassembled many Fox engines, but this crankshaft is just really beautiful. I mean, this is quite impressive. Fox may not have spent a whole lot of time on the exterior finishes of their engines, but it certainly looks like they spent a great deal of time on the inside. So that's quite impressive. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to introduce these bearings first, and then I'll lubricate everything up and we'll install these. So this is bearing kit number ENK-037ST, the stainless steel set of bearings. Let me go ahead and get them out and see if there's anything that needs to be done to them. It looks like that front bearing is already completely open. Yes, the front bearing looks like it's open on both ends. I'd prefer it not be. I usually like to have a sealed front bearing, but this is exactly as it came out of the Fox engine, so unfortunately I guess I'm kind of stuck there. I usually like to have the front have one seal on the front bearing on the outer face, so that, you know, but that's just the way this one came. Now this particular bearing came with a green shield on the rear, so I'm going to be taking that off because I want completely open bearings here. At least I wanted completely open bearings in the rear, not necessarily the front. So this rear one is just a very simple matter of just kind of getting in here on the right above the inner race and just kind of lifting this seal out. There we go, and then it just comes right off like that. That's a beautiful looking there. Look at that. That's just wow. 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 Look at that. That is a sweet bearing. I don't know if I can do the same thing with this one because... Okay, so let's go ahead and instead of drooling all over these bearings, let's just go ahead and start lubricating parts up here and get these bearings installed. And then I get the fun job of reassembling this engine. So when I use the Lightning Lube, I usually just do one squirt in my container here, and it's usually enough to do several engines. So that's why I didn't dispense any here, because there was already some in there. But this works really, really well. And here I'm going to lubricate the outside of this nice spinny bearing. The outside of this too. Wipe my fingers off real quick, move some of this stuff out of the way. And so, as usual, I always like to install the rear bearing on the crankshaft first. And there it goes. And then we'll install the front bearing in the case first, and that way, with the bearing on the crankshaft, the front bearing installed, it acts as a centering mechanism so that you're guaranteed to be going in straight. When I first started doing bearings, I wasn't doing it this way, and I was just putting the bearing in there, and there were times where it would not go in straight at all, and I'd have to keep popping it out, and it was difficult. So that is the method I use all the time now. I had that on my high setting, so that should be more than adequate to install these bearings. And that one's in. Beautiful. Let's see how easily this one, see if it just wants to drop in there. It's in there, it's ready to go. Now we just need to drive her home. That in. I think that can go another couple of millimeters. There. Okay. There you go. And that bearing upgrade is complete on this Fox 45 BBRC engine.